We're gonna do brakes and rotors on a 03 Pontiac Grand Am GT. We're working on the rear. All you need is a 15 and a 13 millimeter socket. We got a 15 here on the caliper bolts. Oh, these guys are on there. You might need a bar. We're gonna start off with taking this caliper off. There we go. Nice and loose once it broke free. These are some pretty thick bolts, so I'm not really worried about snapping them using that bar. These bolts should be the same size, no difference in them. Don't have to worry about which one goes in the top or the bottom. You really don't need very many tools for this. Just gonna take a screwdriver, get it on the end of the pad, and compress this caliper. This caliper is pretty stiff. Slides right off. Now this is where the 13 millimeter comes in. Caliper mounting bracket hardware. Might as well use this bar again. They're probably going to be in there pretty tight. Nope. Not tight like the other ones. Pretty loose. After we get this bracket off, right where the hardware sits, where the pad ears sit, we're going to clean that up really well with a... I like to use my bench wire wheel or wire brush or my Dremel tool with a soft grinder on it to get all that rust out, because these pads will seize in there. Might be tough to get your new pads in if you don't knock the rust off. We get a lot of rust around here. So you got your two 13 millimeter bolts out. Bada boom. Caliper's off. We'll smack this rotor off. Sometimes it takes a beating to get them off. This one came off easy. Good time to inspect your e-brakes. These ones look good. Not too rusty in there. Plenty of life. So I buy premium pads that come with new hardware. So this hardware could just be thrown out. We're gonna clean up all that rust that's built up on these ears. First, I'm gonna make sure this piston's all the way in. It actually looks like I got it all the way in with the screwdriver. These pistons don't bottom out all the way flush with the caliper. They actually stick out a bit. Use a C-clamp, some big pliers, caliper turn back tool, whatever you gotta use. Just using this cheap $5 tool from Harbor Freight for now. Make sure that piston's all the way in. There we go, it just stopped. So I had it almost all the way in. Just using the screwdriver, probably would have been enough. We got a rotor all prepped. You want to spray your new rotor off with a little bit of brake cleaner? All right, those e-brakes are offset, maybe from the hammer. Yep, this one. Give her a little tap to center them so the rotor goes over it. Smooth. That'll kind of straighten it out. These are 2 little sliders. We're gonna wipe the old grease off and put new grease on them. If they're really rusty or corroded or whatever, take them to the wire wheel, clean them off. We're gonna get a dab of grease for each one of them and coat where they slide inside the caliper. There's one. Just getting them prepped. Some fresh grease on those guys. My rag go. All right, now it's time to clean the bracket. I'm gonna put a dab of grease where the slide caliper bolts go. You don't want those to lock up on you, they'll mess up the wear on your pads. All right, I'll clean this up and be right back. All right, we got our mounting bracket all set up. Got the new hardware in there and put the pads where they go. I find it easier to put the pads in first on this style. So got these little tabs that kind of spring. Those 2 bolts go. There they are. Our 13mm head bolt. Tighten those suckers down. And get them nice and tight. Give them a lot of force if you're using a 3/8 ratchet like I am. Just gonna kind of get that one to bottom out a little. And tighten this one all the way and go back and do a final torque on that bottom one. Gonna do the same thing for the 15mm caliper bolt. After you're done, if you got any grease or anything on your rotor, spray it down with a little brake cleaner. You kind of got to squeeze these boots together. I like to put it on the bottom one, squeeze it so it's lined up, and then squeeze the top one with my finger, slide the ear over it. Those boots will try twisting on you. We want to get rid of that brake fluid that we push back in the line, so do a brake bleeding afterwards. It's always good. So I'm gonna tighten these 2 bolts up, put the tire on, and we're good to go. Bleed the brakes. That's how it's done.